All right, on page 243, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through all these problems. I want you to help me. I think it starts with 15, right? Some of these I understand, these are difficult problems. That's why I want to go through them all. Looking at the book, everybody help me out, because otherwise I'll just stop and I'll start calling on people around the room. And then some of you are going to be upset with me, right? Right, Sydney? Somebody help me out and tell me the letters on 15 so I don't have to keep looking back in my book. What goes here? W.
Oh, you forgot a line. There's a line that goes H. Yeah. And then H, P, A, Q. And then the one in the middle is X.
All right, what you got to do with these kind of problems is you got to read them carefully and mark the stuff, because I guarantee you're going to get confused, and I will put problems on there on the test, and you're going to be upset with yourself. When we have this test next week, you're going to be upset with yourself because you're going to set up something because you didn't take your time and read the whole problem. What do they tell us on this problem? Somebody read me the problem, but go slowly, part by part.
If segment WP is a median.
All right, stop right there. So we know that WP is a median. If everybody's not focused up here, I will start calling on people. So WP is a median. What's that tell you?
Splitting those two.
What's key word when you hear median?
Midpoint.
Midpoint, congruent segments. So what two segments have to be congruent? If this is a median.
Oh.
HP and good. All right, so that's the first thing I do. Mark that. Don't just read through it and then try to come back. There's too much here to go through all that. So we know those two segments are congruent. What else you know? What's the next thing said?
It says and an angle bisect.
And an angle bisector. So this bisects an angle. What angle does it bisect?
HWA.
HWA. So what do I know about these two angles right here? They gotta be congruent to each other. So I mark that. A little at a time.
AP equals 3y plus 11.
I'll write that in there. What else?
PH equals 7y minus 5.
Now, before we go any farther, can we set up an equation from that?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do we know about those two?
They're equal.
They're equal, so what equation?
7y minus 5 equals 3y plus 11.
Maybe that'll help us, maybe it won't, I don't know. If they want us to find y, then we'll be able to find y here in a minute, but we have it set up, it's ready to go if we do need it. Maybe it won't help us at all. What do they say next?
Angle HWP equals x plus 12.
Teachers, excuse the
HWP.
interruption. I need the rest of the students to go to report to Mr. Poole to get their computers updated. Thank you.
That's this angle right here, just this top part. What did it say it was?
X plus 12.
X plus 12. So x plus 12. If this angle's x plus 12, what can you tell me about this angle down here? It's x plus 12 also. Maybe that'll help us, maybe it won't, I don't know. I'm not going to write it in yet, but we might need it here in a little while. Go on.
Angle PAW equals 3x minus 2.
All right, this one's a little tougher. Angle, hold on, say that angle again.
Angle PAW.
PAW. That's this angle right here, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is it?
3x minus 2.
I was thinking of the next part that you're going to tell me. So we know that angle's 3x minus 2. Is this angle and this angle congruent to each other?
No.
No, so that doesn't really help us any, does it? All right, so next thing.
Angle HWA equals 4x minus 16.
Now here's where you got to be careful. Angle HWA. That's that whole thing right there. So I'm going to mark it like this. What did it equal?
And equal 4x minus 16.
Minus 16.
Mm-hmm.
They tell us anything else?
find X and Y.
So, things we wanna find, X, Y, is that all we wanna find?
And it says, is segment WP also an altitude?
So we got three things there we're trying to decide, right? What an X is, what Y is, whether it's an altitude or not. Whether this is an altitude. To be an altitude, what would have to be true about this? What's an altitude do?
And it runs when you move X to the opposite side and forms that angle.
So this angle right here would have to be what kind of angle?
Right.
It'd have to be a right angle. So if we can show that that's a right angle, then we know it's an altitude. So we'll do that when we get to it. Can we solve for Y right away? Yeah, we got that equation up here. Subtract 3y on both sides. So we know this is one of the answers we need. 4y minus 5 equals 11. Add 5. 4y equals 16. What's y equal? 4. So that's one of our answers. Now we gotta set up an equation for x. What'd you guys tell me about this angle right here?
It's congruent to the other angle, the x.
So what
plus
can we
1,
put in there?
X plus 12.
Now can we set up an equation?
Mm-hmm.
What?
X plus 12 plus x plus 12 equals 4x minus 16.
This angle plus this angle should equal the whole thing, right? So x plus 12, you could probably do this a little easier than writing x plus 12 plus x plus 12, couldn't you?
2x plus 24.
Alright, so you could probably do that without writing out this step that I'm writing out. You know, you collect like terms and you end up with 2x plus 24 equals 4x minus 16. Now what do we do? These cancel, left with 24 equals 2x minus 16, then what? So 2x equals 40, what's x equal then? Alright, so we got the two easy things done. Can we just look at this? My first block class, and Sharice was probably doing it a second ago and I wasn't paying attention. My first block class, I said, okay, is that an altitude? And guess what they were doing?
I wasn't doing that.
Yeah, she was. So they're turning their head sideways to try to see if that looks like a right angle, right? Should you ever do that? Especially not with my drawings.
That's what I do, being honest.
So don't, because especially with my drawings, do my drawings ever look like right angles?
No.
No. So don't just do that. We got to mathematically figure out, is that a right angle right there? All right? And the way we can do that is by looking at that triangle on the bottom. What can you tell me about this angle right here if we're looking at this triangle? It's x plus 12. Well, do we know what x is? 20. 20 plus 12 is what?
32.
So we now know that that angle is 32. All right? They told us what this angle was. They gave us this and we didn't use it for anything. There had to be some reason they gave it to us, right? And this is it. Can we now figure out what that angle is?
58.
58. Now can we decide what that angle right there is?
Yeah, because you gotta do, wait, hold on, I know, hold on. It's like 58 plus 32, and then whatever that equals, and then you have to do 180 minus that number, correct?
Yep, what's 8 plus 2?
10. 9.
Subtract 90, what do you get?
90.
So is it an altitude?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, again, can you just put yes?
No, but you
have to explain.
You have to explain. Yes, because
The measure of
Measure
WP
of
angle. WPA
is not altitude.
that test that they're doing all this stuff for, this is what you're going to be, that's the kind of problems you're going to be doing. Right? So you've got to make sure you understand that, how to do it step by step. Was there any math in there that was so difficult? Probably the hardest math in there was what? Let's see. Maybe 180 minus 90? I don't know. I don't see anything that's really any harder. 40 divided by 2? Nothing real difficult in there, but that's, you've got to make sure you can work all the way down through a bunch of different steps. And you'll see today when you take that practice test, that's what you're gonna be doing. You wanna write it down?
Yeah. I'm just trying to answer something.
I was gonna ask you a question, but now I forget.
Thank you.
Erica. No, it was like actually a serious question, but I forget.
You'll remember here in a minute. Problem 16. Does that use the same picture?
Yeah.
So I'll draw my picture up here again. Be ready to read it to me.
Oh, I know my question.
What?
How do I explain it? So like on tests and stuff, like how you tell us about like how you're drawing, like you can make right angles or whatever. Okay, like on some of our tests we have triangles that like angle will equal out to 90, but it doesn't look like a right angle on the paper. Should it look like a right angle on the paper?
Not necessarily. I taught out of a geometry book, and when we got to the chapter before this one, from there on, every triangle in the book, that's the only triangle they used, because they want you to make sure you're not going by what the drawing looks like, you're going by the information that you know.
Okay.
Because if you go by what the drawing looks like, and we said this when we first started drawing triangles, I said, all right, and I didn't do it this year. Usually I do it every year. I say, all right, on your paper there, on your notes, draw me a triangle. And then every single person either draws this triangle or that triangle. And I say, what kind of triangle did you draw? And some of you'd say, I drew a right triangle. And others would say, I drew an equilateral triangle. And then I would yell at everybody and say, why? I didn't tell you to draw either one of those two triangles. I just told you to draw a triangle. How do you know it's a right triangle? I didn't tell you to draw a right triangle. Does that make sense? So when you go to draw triangles, these are the ones that you normally draw. Well, nobody told you to draw those. That's just the easy ones to draw. Okay? All right, on 16, somebody help me out and read on 16. What's it say?
If segment WP is a median.
All right, so stop right there. It's a median.
Oh, wait, no, I was reading.
On the wrong
15.
problem.
WP is a perpendicular bisector.
All right, so stop right there. If this is a perpendicular bisector, what's that tell you? That tells you a whole bunch of information.
That the line that it intersects forms right angles.
So now, what do we know about that right there?
It's 90 degrees.
It's 90 degrees. Even though mine might not look like it, we now know that that has to be a right angle. And also, since it's a bisector, we know that these two segments are congruent. So we mark that. We know all that stuff. Does it bisect this angle right here?
Yeah. No.
Do we know?
No, but it does.
It does? You're sure?
It doesn't.
Next.
Measure of angle WHA equals AQ plus 17.
All right, so let's stop there for a second because I need to do this. They got to make everything difficult. WHA, that's this whole angle. What was it? 8Q.
Plus 17.
So that's that whole angle. We got to make sure we know it's those two angles together. I'm going to make you prove it to me here in a minute, Sharice, that it does.
What?
Bisect that angle down there.
Measure of angle HWP equals 10 plus Q.
That's this angle right here. 10 plus Q.
Yeah. And then segment AP equals 6R plus 4. In segment BH equals 22 plus
So is Sharice gonna be able to prove to us here pretty soon that this does bisect it? Let's see. You gonna be able to prove it? What's an equation I can set up?
22 plus 3r equals 6r
I
plus
put an X in there, sorry. 22 plus
3r,
equals,
6r plus 4.
we can solve that, right? I'm just gonna solve it real quick so we can move along a little bit. Hopefully all of you know how to solve an equation. Oops, don't add 4. That's what happens when you get in a hurry. What's R equal then?
6.
Now what?
Then you can do the 10 plus q. This is going to be a lot. You can shorten it up, but 10 plus q plus 8q plus 17 plus 90 equals 180.
Alright, so what Katie did there, this top triangle, what do you know about the three angles of that triangle?
They add up to 180.
They add up to 180. Alright, so this angle plus this angle plus this one right here, which she knew was 90, has to equal 180. Does everybody see that now? That's a little tough, right? Sometimes you gotta split stuff off and just take your time and think it through. All of you know that, but you gotta make sure that you're taking your time and not getting frustrated.
My brain was working last night.
Yeah, mine was 2.
Q and 8Q give us what?
9q.
10, 17, 90.
27, 117.
Subtract 117. 9Q equals 63. Now what?
Divided by
7.
9.
Divide by 9.
So q equals 7.
Q equals 7. So we got two parts of our answers. Now what are we going to do? We want to find the measure of angle HWP.
You can plug in, for, is it HWP, is it the 10 plus Q? So then you just plug in 7 for Q.
What do
which
we
is
get?
17.
All right, so those are our three answers. Now, is there any way we can go back and have Sharice prove to us that, what would this angle have to be?
The same as 10Q, or 10 plus Q?
Do we have enough information to decide that?
Yeah, oh, no, you don't. No.
We don't. All right, because we'd need to know something, let's see, if we have the big triangle, we'd have to know something about down here, something, we know that whole thing, we know it, but that doesn't, that gives us one of the angles in the big triangle. This smaller triangle on the bottom, we know this angle, but we don't know either one of these other two angles. So as much as I'd like to make Sharice prove it to me, I'm not gonna make her because there's no way to actually prove it.
Wait.
Never mind. 17 different? Yeah, these are the. Alright, 17. The medians of a triangle. As soon as you hear the word medians, what should you think of?
Midpoint.
Midpoint, congruent segments. Medians of a triangle intersect at a point on the interior of the triangle. Always, sometimes, or never? Always. What are the ones that always intersect inside? Median, and what was the other one that we covered last time?
In center.
The in-center, which goes along with,
A Q. Oh, crap.
in center goes along with what?
Angle.
Angle bisectors. Angle bisectors and medians are always inside the triangle. Always inside the triangle. 18. The three altitudes of a triangle intersect at a vertex of the triangle. You can't really look at my picture up here because do I have all the different kinds of triangles? No, that's why we did the three different kinds on your notes. So do the altitudes ever intersect at a vertex of the triangle? Yeah, sometimes. It was which kind of triangle?
Oh,
A right triangle. A right triangle. Where did they intersect at for an acute triangle?
or wait.
Inside. And for an obtuse triangle, it was on the outside. 19. Three angle bisectors of a triangle intersect at a point in the exterior of the triangle. Or on the outside of the triangle.
Never.
Never. We just got done saying that back up here, right? They're always inside. 20. Three perpendicular bisectors of a triangle intersect at a point in the exterior of the triangle. Sometimes. What kind of triangle is it where they intersect outside the triangle?
Oh,
Obtuse.
Yeah.
Alright, remember that's the one where we had to, my lines were real
like
crooked.
a scalene.
Had to go way out there.
Right?
It could be scaling. What was next?
21.
21?
What's 9 plus dx? Uno. No, it's just
Más,
9 plus
hey.
10.
Ariel. 9 más 10.
What? I took yours on the other day.
It, the AC.
And I like tried to wipe it off with German, and I had like a huge black mark on it.
21, what do they tell us?
They tell us find x if segment PS is the median
Now watch, because this is, I guarantee I do this to you on a test.
of PQR. Yeah.
They tell us that this is a median. As soon as you hear that that's a median, what should you know?
Midpoint.
Midpoint, so
Congruent segments.
congruent segments. So what equation can you set up?
Oh, 10x minus 7 equals 5x plus 3.
Now, before I go on and solve that, I put that on the test, and about half the people are going to set up what equation? 15x plus 42 equals 90, all right? You got to know, if they tell you it's a median, it's one thing. If they tell you it's an altitude, something different. Subtract 5x on both sides. 5x minus 7 equals 3, add 7. 5x equals 10, what's x equal then? Problem 22. I don't feel like writing all the points in there. Does it really matter if I have all the letters? Somebody tell me what they tell us, what's the information on this one?
Find x if AD is an altitude of triangle ABC.
So they're telling us this is an altitude. As soon as you hear altitude, what should you think of? Right angles, right? That's, now could you think of orthocenter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right angles is the key thing. So what equation can I set up?
4x
4x minus 6, this angle has to equal 90 degrees. Again, can you set this equal to that? Because we don't know that this is a what? Median. So you've got to be careful. Add 6, you get 4x equals 96. Divide by 4, what's x equal? Wow. What is it?
I did that right. I got 22 because they set them equal to each other.
Now, if you would have set that up, x plus 7 equals 2x minus 15, does that mean it's going to give you 24?
No, give me 22.
It gives you 22, so is this a median? No, because it doesn't split it up evenly. Next one, what's the next problem?
41.
41. They ask you what segment is FJ?
It's like all of them.
It's a median.
Is it all of them? Do we know for sure? What would we have to know?
Well, perpendicular
Right
bisector,
angle bisector
it's
would
not
work.
that
I
because
had
then it'd have the
median.
right angle thing.
It's
Yeah, you have to
median.
know right angles.
Well,
Do we know right angles down here?
No,
What's the only thing that they did tell us?
median, 'cause
It's
it
really
does-
segment.
These congruent segments, right? So what's the only thing it can be?
Median.
It's a median. I'm not sure which one it is. Now, could it be an angle bisector? Maybe, but what did they not tell us up here? That those are congruent. We'd have to know that before we could say it was an angle bisector.
Alright, this 42 one is hard. I just guessed.
All right, watch on 42. 42, does anybody know what that is?
Oh, we learned it last year.
Not equal to. What's that called in algebra? And starts with an I. Oh, you'll learn today then.
Okay.
Imaginary.
All right, you'll learn today here in a minute. So they're telling us x times y can't equal 0. All that means whenever they show you something like x times y can't equal 0 is that you don't want either one of those to be 0 because apparently you're going to have a fraction. And what can you not have in the denominator of a fraction? You can't have a 0 down there. All right? Can't have a 0 in the denominator of a fraction.
Iteration. No, never mind, that's not it.
3x equals, and all of you are going to think, well, that's silly when we do this problem. This is the kind of problem I help some of the juniors and seniors with ACT practice stuff. And this is the kind of problem that's on the ACT test, a bunch of these, because everybody looks at it and goes, and doesn't understand it, and then they just quit on it. And it's not very difficult.
Perseverance.
We're trying to get, what's it say, y over x, is that what we want to get?
Yeah, then y over x equals
So
question.
we're trying to figure out what that equals. All you want to do is manipulate this around. So watch carefully and you'll understand it and it won't be hard. Manipulate it around. I want to get y over x, so that means I want to move this x to where?
Below y.
Below y. Well, so I'll divide this side by x. If I divide that by x, I gotta divide that by x. These x's cancel out. You're left with 3 equals 0.3y over x. Am I close to what I want? Yeah, what do I gotta get rid of still? The point,
Or the 0.3.
the
yeah.
0.3 over here, right? Well, if you got 0.3 on
Multiply.
top, it's on top, so what do?
Divide by
You divide both sides by 0.3. These cancel out. What am I left with on this side now?
Y and x.
Y over x, that's what I want. Alright? Somebody help me out, what's 3 divided by 0.3? You're not sure, then you come in here and you do the division.
0.1.
Move the decimal over one spot. Move the decimal over one spot. Decimal goes straight up here. That means you got 3 will go into 30. How many times will 3 go into 30? What's y over x equal then?
10.0.
What's y over x equal? 10. Do you know what y is?
Holy crap, I guessed that. I got that right.
No. Do you know what x is? No. Do we care? No, they didn't ask us to find either one of those two things. And this is a lot of, when you do things out in the real world, you're not going to know what every variable is. Right? You might have 3 or 4 variables in a certain problem, but what you want to do is get something set up to where it's easy for you to find each one of those variables if you know the other one. All right? I know a person that worked over at Akey's, I'm not even sure what it's called now, but they make animal food. All right? They've changed names, 15, 20 times here in the last 10 years. So they make animal food. And they got to make sure that they put in, sulfur plus, I'm not sure what all they put in there. Some kind of meal, I'm sure. And when they put it in, they want 2 times the meal to double the meal that they put in sulfur and all that, and it's gotta add up to be whatever tonnage that certain farmer wants, so maybe they want 5 tons. Well, that changes every time. You don't know how many tons each farmer is gonna get, so you can't set this up. But you have a formula, and what you've gotta do is be able to manipulate that formula around to make it easier for you to do that certain farmers each time. And that's what this is. We don't know what X and Y is, but maybe next time, you know that Y is 50. If Y is 50, then what's X have to be?
Does it have to be a negative?
5.
What are you doing here?
Oh, it's 5.
It's just 5. 50 divided by 5 gives you 10. If Y was 100, what would X have to be? 10. Alright, so we have some formula here that we can now, if we know one of these two variables, then we can find the other.
Do you have any tissues?
I might be able to find some here in a minute. The worksheets, you remember those packets that I gave you? Next week, I will collect those at some point.